Ford Okafor sat in his opulent office, his fingers tightening around the medical report as if his grip could change the cruel words printed on the page. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live. The words echoed in his mind, drowning out the hum of Lagos traffic beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows. A man who had conquered business empires, amassed wealth beyond imagination, now stood powerless before death. For the first time in his 45 years, Ford felt truly afraid. He had always thought there would be more time to marry, to have children, to build something beyond fortune. Now, time was slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. As he stared at the skyline, a realization settled in his chest. If he could not escape death, he could at least leave behind a legacy. A child. His bloodline must continue. Pamela Owusu had worked for Ford for 6 years, tending to his home with diligence and quiet grace. She had always admired him from a distance, not for his wealth, but for his kindness. Unlike other rich men, he treated his staff with respect, never raising his voice, always ensuring they were well taken care of. So when Ford called her into his study that evening, she had no idea her world was about to change forever. "Pamela," Ford began, his voice unusually hesitant, "I have a request. A difficult one." Her heart pounded as she took a seat. "Yes, sir." He exhaled slowly. "I want you to have my child." Pamela's breath hitched. The room seemed to shrink around her. "Sir," she whispered, unsure if she had heard correctly. "I'm dying, Pamela." His voice broke. "I have 6 months. I have no wife, no child. I want my bloodline to continue, and I trust you more than anyone. This is not about money, I will ensure you are well taken care of, but I ask this not out of desperation, but out of hope. Hope that something of me will live on." Silence stretched between them. Pamela's hands trembled in her lap. She had never imagined herself in such a position. The weight of his request pressed upon her, a decision that could change her life forever. Pamela barely slept at night. Ford's request echoed in her mind, intertwining with memories of her own struggles. She had grown up in poverty, raised by a single mother who had sacrificed everything for her. She knew what it was like to fight for survival, to long for a father's love that never came. Could she bring a child into the world under these circumstances? Could she say yes to a dying man's last wish? The following morning, she found herself standing outside Ford's study again. Her hands were clammy, her heart heavy. When she entered, he was already looking at her, his eyes filled with unspoken hope. "Pamela," he said softly, "whatever your decision is, I will respect it." She took a deep breath. "I'll do it. But not for the money or security. I'll do it because you have been good to me, and no one deserves to die without knowing their child will live on." Relief flooded Ford's face, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled, a genuine, grateful smile. He reached for her hands, his grip warm despite the cold weight of his fate. "Thank you, Pamela. You have given me something no amount of wealth ever could." The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Ford arranged for private medical consultations, ensuring Pamela's health and well-being would be prioritized throughout the pregnancy. They agreed that their arrangement would remain private, no media, no extravagant announcements, just a quiet understanding between the two of them. Pamela, still grappling with the weight of her decision, found comfort in the gentle way Ford treated her. Despite his own battle with illness, he made sure she felt supported. He even sought her opinions on baby names, discussing hopes and dreams for the child they would bring into the world. One evening, as they sat on the terrace overlooking the city, Ford turned to her. "Pamela, I don't want you to feel like you're doing this alone. Whatever time I have left, I will be here with you, every step of the way." His words stirred something deep inside her. She had entered this agreement with a sense of duty, but now, an unexpected warmth was blossoming in her heart. It was no longer just about fulfilling a promise, it was about forging a connection that neither of them had anticipated. As the weeks passed, Pamela underwent the medical procedures necessary for conception. Ford spared no expense, hiring the best fertility specialists to ensure success. The journey was both physically and emotionally demanding, but she found strength in Ford's unwavering support. One morning, after a routine checkup, the doctor smiled as he read her test results. "Congratulations, Pamela. You're pregnant." Her breath caught in her throat. She placed a hand on her stomach, a rush of emotions flooding through her, fear, excitement, disbelief. She had known this moment was coming, but now that it was real, the weight of it settled over her in a new way. When she returned home, Ford was waiting anxiously. The moment she nodded, confirming the news, his face lit up with joy. "We did it," he whispered, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "Our child is on the way." For the first time since his diagnosis, Ford felt hope. This was not just about leaving something behind, this was about truly living in the time he had left. And for Pamela, it was the start of a journey that would change her life forever. As Pamela's pregnancy progressed, her relationship with Ford deepened. What had begun as an agreement between two people now carried a warmth neither had anticipated. Ford, despite his illness, made an effort to be present in every way possible. He attended doctor's appointments, planned nursery designs, and read parenting books late into the night. Pamela, in turn, found herself leaning on Ford in ways she never expected. His unwavering presence was a comfort, his laughter a source of joy in what could have been a lonely journey. With each passing day, her respect and admiration for him blossomed into something more profound, something she hesitated to name. One evening, as they sat together in the baby's room, Ford placed a gentle hand on her belly, feeling the faintest of movements. "Our child is strong," he murmured, a mix of pride and sorrow in his voice. "I just wish I had more time." Pamela covered his hand with hers, tears pricking at her eyes. "You are here now, Ford. That's what matters." In that quiet moment, surrounded by the soft glow of a nursery lamp, they both understood the truth. Love had found its way into their story, unplanned yet undeniable. The months passed swiftly, each day a battle between hope and the looming reality of Ford's condition. His strength waned, but his resolve never did. He continued to be there for Pamela, even as his body betrayed him. They attended bathing classes together, picked out tiny clothes, and dreamed about a future that he might not be part of. One night, as they lay in the dimly lit living room, Pamela reached for Ford's hand. "I don't want to do this without you," she whispered. He squeezed her fingers gently. "You won't be alone, Pamela. You have our child. And I will always be with you, in them." Despite Ford's weakening state, their love continued to grow. Pamela realized that what she felt for him was no longer just admiration or gratitude, it was love, deep and unwavering. And Ford, though he had never expected to find love in his final days, felt the same. As his time ran out, they embraced every moment, cherishing the love that had blossomed in the shadow of mortality. Ford Okafor's body was failing him, but his spirit remained unbroken. The once powerful businessman, who had commanded boardrooms with confidence, now found himself confined to his bedroom, each breath a laborious effort. Yet, his eyes still held the fire of a man who refused to surrender to fate. Pamela was by his side every moment, ensuring he was comfortable, speaking to him in hushed, soothing tones, and holding his hand through the long, painful nights. Despite his deteriorating condition, Ford still found ways to prepare for the future. He recorded voice messages for his unborn child, hoping they would serve as a bridge between them when he was no longer there. He wrote letters, each one filled with love, wisdom, and encouragement. He made Pamela promise that their child would grow up knowing who he was, not just as a businessman, but as a man who loved deeply and fought to be present until the very end. One evening, as the sun cast a golden hue across the room, Ford reached for Pamela's hand, his grip weaker than before. "I wish I had more time," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Tears welled in Pamela's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You have given us everything, Ford. Your love, your strength, your legacy. That will never fade." A small, tired smile played on his lips. "Promise me, Pamela. Promise me you'll live, that you'll find happiness even without me." She swallowed the lump in her throat, nodding. "I promise. But you will always be with me, with us." As night fell, Ford's breathing grew more labored. Pamela lay beside him, her hand resting on his chest, feeling the faint rhythm of his heart. The house was silent, save for the sound of their intertwined breaths, one slowing, the other steady. In that quiet moment, surrounded by love, Ford Okafor closed his eyes, holding on to the last precious seconds he had left with the woman who had changed his life forever. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. But Pamela felt only darkness. Ford's body lay still beside her, his hand now cold in hers. The reality of his passing settled over her like a heavy shroud. He was gone. The man who had become her world, the father of her unborn child, had taken his final breath. She allowed herself one moment of complete despair, burying her face in his chest as silent sobs racked her body. But then, as if hearing his voice in her mind, she straightened. Ford had made her promise, she would live, she would carry on. Pamela spent the next few days in a daze, handling the funeral arrangements alongside Ford's trusted lawyer. The service was private, attended only by close friends and family. As she stood before his grave, she clutched her belly protectively, whispering, "I will raise them well, Ford. I will make sure they know who their father was." In the weeks that followed, Pamela found strength she never knew she had. Ford had left her everything, his wealth, his estate, and most importantly, the responsibility of continuing his legacy. With each passing day, her belly grew, and so did her resolve. She would not let grief consume her, she would be the mother her children needed. One evening, as she sat by the window, staring at the stars, she felt the first strong kick from within her. A tear rolled down her cheek, but this time, it was not from sadness. It was a reminder Ford lived on, in her and in the life they had created together. And she would keep her promise. Months passed, and Pamela's belly grew heavy with life. The once quiet and solemn halls of Ford's estate were now filled with the soft hum of lullabies as she prepared for the arrival of their children. The weight of responsibility pressed upon her, but so did an overwhelming sense of purpose. She was not just carrying Ford's legacy, she was nurturing two lives that would carry his name into the future. The night of the birth arrived sooner than she had expected. A sharp pain rippled through her body, waking her from a restless sleep. Panic surged through her, but she steadied herself, remembering Ford's unwavering presence. With the help of a trusted midwife and Ford's personal doctor, she was rushed to the hospital, her body trembling with both fear and anticipation. Hours later, the cries of two newborn boys filled the delivery room. Pamela, exhausted and drenched in sweat, let out a breathless laugh as she gazed at the tiny faces of her sons. They were perfect, small, fragile, yet bursting with the promise of a future Ford had dreamed of. She cradled them in her arms, whispering their names with a mixture of joy and sorrow. "Ford Jr. and Kamsi," she murmured, her heart swelling with love. They were her reason to keep going, her connection to the man she had loved and lost. As she looked at them, she knew that this was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one she would face with unwavering strength, just as Ford had wanted. And as the sun rose over the horizon, bathing the hospital room in golden light, Pamela smiled. She had kept her promise. The first few months of motherhood were a whirlwind. Pamela quickly learned that raising twin boys alone was no small feat. Nights were filled with sleepless hours, rocking Ford Jr. and Kamsi in her arms as they cried in unison. Days blurred into one another as she balanced feeding, changing, and comforting them. Yet, despite the exhaustion, she never wavered. Each time she held them close, she felt Ford's presence, his love, his strength. Ford's estate, once a home of quiet solitude, was now alive with laughter and the soft coos of the twins. Pamela found joy in the smallest moments, the way Ford Jr. grasped her finger tightly, the way Kamsi gazed up at her with wide, curious eyes. They were growing, thriving, and she was determined to give them the best life possible. But with Ford's passing came challenges she had never anticipated. Board members of his company questioned her ability to handle his estate. Some even suggested that she sell off Ford's shares and move on. But Pamela stood firm. She had made a promise, and she would not let Ford's legacy be dismantled so easily. With the help of Ford's trusted lawyer and a few lawyer executives, she began to learn the business. Late nights were spent reading financial reports, understanding market trends, and preparing for meetings. It was overwhelming, but she refused to back down. She was not just a grieving widow or a helpless mother, she was a woman with a mission. One evening, as she sat in Ford's study, reviewing documents, a soft giggle caught her attention. She turned to see Ford Jr. standing unsteadily on wobbly legs, his chubby hands reaching out. Pamela's heart swelled with pride as he took his first, uncertain steps toward her. Tears welled in her eyes as she scooped him up, holding him close. "Your father would be so proud of you," she whispered. As she looked at her sons, she knew this was only the beginning of her journey. She had faced loss, heartbreak, and uncertainty, but she would keep going. For Ford. For their children. For the future he had dreamed of. The weight of the world pressed on Pamela's shoulders, but she refused to falter. The business world was ruthless, and Ford's company was under scrutiny. Investors were wary, some believing she was too inexperienced to handle the empire Ford had built. Yet, she refused to let fear dictate her actions. Every morning, she woke before the twins, balancing motherhood with the responsibilities of running a corporation. She studied Ford's old notes, sought advice from his trusted associates, and made strategic decisions that slowly earned her respect. Despite opposition, she pushed through, proving herself capable. One day, during a high-stakes board meeting, a senior executive attempted to undermine her authority. "Perhaps it would be best if you step down, Mrs. Owusu. Leave the business to those with experience." Pamela met his gaze steadily. "Experience is built through perseverance, and I am more determined than ever. Ford trusted me to carry on his legacy, and I will not fail him or our sons." Silence filled the room before a few board members nodded in approval. It was the moment she realized she was no longer just Ford's widow, she was a leader in her own right. At home, the twins continued to grow. Ford Jr. was strong-willed and determined, much like his father. Kamsi, on the other hand, was thoughtful and observant, always watching, always learning. Their laughter filled the house, a constant reminder of the love that had created them. One evening, as she tucked them into bed, Ford Jr. clutched her hand. "Mama, will we make Daddy proud?" Pamela's eyes softened as she kissed his forehead. "We already have, my love. And we will continue to." As she walked back to her room, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had risen above the doubts, the fears, and the challenges. The journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. For Ford. For her sons. For the future. Pamela's journey as both a mother and businesswoman was anything but easy. Managing Ford's empire while raising two energetic boys required patience, resilience, and an unwavering sense of purpose. She quickly learned that the business world had little sympathy for a grieving widow. Every decision she made was scrutinized, and every move tested her resolve. One of the company's biggest projects, a multi-million-dollar real estate venture, was on the verge of collapse due to legal disputes. Investors were pulling out, and whispers of failure spread through the boardrooms. Pamela knew that if she let fear consume her, everything Ford had built would crumble. She had to act fast. Late nights turned into early mornings as she worked tirelessly, reviewing contracts, consulting lawyers, and negotiating new terms. There were moments of doubt, times when exhaustion nearly overtook her, but she refused to let go of Ford's dream. Just when it seemed the project was doomed, a breakthrough came. An investor who had once admired Ford stepped forward, willing to back the project under Pamela's leadership. It was a turning point, proving that she was more than capable of carrying the company forward. At home, the twins continued to grow, each day presenting new joys and challenges. Ford Jr. had his father's fiery spirit, always questioning, always pushing boundaries. Kamsi, quieter but no less determined, had an innate understanding of people, a trait that often left Pamela in awe. Despite her busy schedule, she made it a point to be present for them. School recitals, bedtime stories, and Sunday afternoons in the park were moments she treasured. One evening, as she watched her sons playing in the garden, she realized something profound. Ford's legacy wasn't just in the business he built, but in the love he left behind. And that love, she would protect and nurture, no matter the trials that came her way. Pamela was no longer just surviving. She was thriving. And with every challenge she conquered, she honored the man who had given her a purpose greater than herself. Just when Pamela thought she had overcome the hardest obstacles, life tested her again. A corporate rival, seeing her success, launched a smear campaign, accusing Ford's company of financial misconduct. The media swarmed, painting her as an incapable leader who had inherited a fortune she couldn't manage. Pamela sat in her office, the headlines glaring at her from her laptop screen. Widow in over her head, one read. Ford's empire crumbling under Pamela Owusu's leadership, said another. The weight of the accusations was suffocating, but she refused to crumble. Determined to clear her name and protect Ford's legacy, she called for an emergency press conference. Standing tall before flashing cameras, she spoke with unwavering confidence. Ford Okafor built this empire on integrity and excellence, and I will not allow baseless accusations to tarnish his legacy. Every financial record is open for scrutiny. We have nothing to hide. Her transparency worked. Investigations found no wrongdoing, and soon, the truth silenced the doubters. Pamela had not only protected the company, she had solidified her place as its rightful leader. At home, she found solace in her son's laughter. Ford Jr. ran to her, his eyes bright with admiration. "Mama, you're so strong. Just like Daddy." Tears pricked her eyes as she pulled him close. "Strength comes from love, my son. And love is what will always guide us." The storm had passed, but Pamela knew life would always bring new challenges. Still, she stood firm, a woman of resilience, leading with love and honor, just as Ford would have wanted. Pamela had spent years proving herself, but now, she longed for something more, balance. She had built Ford's empire stronger than before, ensuring the company thrived, yet she felt the pull to be fully present for her sons. The boys were growing quickly, their personalities shaping into something remarkable. Ford Jr. had become fiercely independent, always striving to lead, while Kamsi possessed an emotional depth that made him wise beyond his years. Pamela often found them reminiscing about their father, piecing together stories from the few memories they had and the ones she lovingly shared. One evening, as they sat on the veranda watching the sunset, Kamsi spoke up. "Mama, do you ever get tired? You do so much for us and the company." Pamela smiled, running her fingers through his soft curls. "Sometimes, my love. But every moment with you two makes it all worth it." Ford Jr. leaned forward, his expression serious. "Mama, we want to help. When we grow up, we'll take care of the company. We'll carry Daddy's dream forward with you." Tears welled in her eyes as she pulled them both close. "You already do, my darlings. By being kind, by being strong, by being the wonderful boys that you are." As she looked ahead, Pamela no longer saw the daunting weight of the future. Instead, she saw hope. She had honored Ford's memory, built a life filled with love, and most importantly, raised two boys who would continue their father's legacy with pride. For the first time in a long time, Pamela felt at peace. The future was bright, and she was ready to embrace it, hand in hand with her sons. Years passed, and the twins grew into young men, ready to step into their father's shoes. Ford Jr. pursued business with his mother's determination, while Kamsi followed a path of philanthropy, ensuring their wealth benefited those in need. Together, they carried on Ford Okafor's dream, proving that his legacy was alive and well. Pamela, watching them flourish, knew she had fulfilled her promise. Ford's love had shaped their lives, and now, they were shaping the world. Her journey was not over, but she embraced every step with grace, knowing that love, true, unwavering love, was the greatest legacy of all. Pamela stood in the grand office that once belonged to Ford, the weight of the years pressing on her shoulders. The twins, now young men, had stepped confidently into their father's shoes, but today was different. Today marked a transition, a passing of the torch. She ran her fingers over Ford's desk, depolished with a reminder of the man who had once occupied this space. The memories flooded in: his laughter, his determination, his unwavering belief in her. He had left behind more than wealth, he had left behind love, resilience, and a family bound by unbreakable ties. Ford Jr. and Kamsi entered the office, their presence a striking contrast of strength and gentleness. Ford Jr. carried the assertiveness of a leader, while Kamsi bore the quiet wisdom that balanced them. "Mama, are you sure about this?" Ford Jr. asked, his brows furrowed in concern. Pamela smiled. "My love, I have led this company with all my heart, just as your father would have wanted. But it is your time now. Both of you." Kamsi stepped forward, placing a hand over hers. "We will honor his legacy, Mama. Just as you have." Tears welled in her eyes, but they were not of sadness, they were of pride. "Then I have done my job well." The ceremony that followed was grand, attended by dignitaries and longtime associates of the company. As Pamela handed over the leadership to her sons, she felt a sense of completion. She had nurtured not just a business, but a legacy of love and perseverance. That evening, as she sat on the balcony overlooking the city, she felt Ford's presence in the gentle breeze. She closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. The love they had built would live on, not just in their sons but in every life they touched. And that, she knew, was the truest legacy of all. With the transition complete, Pamela finally allowed herself to slow down. She had spent years building, fighting, and protecting Ford's dream, but now, she embraced a new role, not as a CEO, but as a mother and a guide. Her days were no longer filled with endless meetings but with moments of peace, long conversations with her sons, trips to the orphanages she had started supporting, and evenings filled with quiet reflection. She found joy in the simple things: cooking for her boys when they visited, planting flowers in the garden, and reliving the memories she had created with Ford. But just when she thought her journey had reached its quiet conclusion, life had another surprise in store for her. At a charity event, she met someone, Daniel, a widower with a kind heart and a shared understanding of loss. They bonded over their love for philanthropy and their mutual desire to give back. Pamela had never imagined finding love again, but as the months passed, she found herself drawn to Daniel's steady presence. He never sought to replace Ford; instead, he honored his memory, supporting Pamela in her continued journey of healing and growth. One evening, as they walked through the gardens of her home, he took her hand. "Pamela, you have spent so much of your life giving to others. Don't you think it's time you allowed yourself to receive love again?" She looked at him, the weight of the past and the hope for the future mingling in her heart. She knew Ford would want her to be happy, to embrace the love she had so freely given to the world. With a deep breath, she smiled. "Maybe it is." As the stars twinkled above, Pamela realized that love was not bound by time or circumstance. It evolved, it endured, and most importantly, it never truly ended. Her journey was far from over, it was simply entering a new chapter. Pamela stood by the ocean, the morning sun casting golden hues over the waves. Life had taken her through storms and calm waters alike, and now, as she watched the horizon stretch infinitely before her, she felt peace. Her sons had flourished, each finding his own path while upholding the values Ford had instilled in them. The company was thriving, not just as a business but as a foundation for change, offering scholarships, creating jobs, and giving back to the very communities that had shaped Ford's vision. Daniel stood beside her, his presence a quiet reassurance. He had become a companion, a friend, and perhaps something more. He had never rushed her, never demanded anything, only offered his presence, steady as the tide. As she turned to face him, she saw the warmth in his eyes. "Are you happy, Pamela?" he asked softly. She smiled, the weight of past burdens now lifted. "I am. And I know Ford would be happy too." The wind carried her words into the vast expanse of the sea, and for the first time in years, she felt truly free. She had honored Ford's memory, raised their sons with love, and built something lasting. But most importantly, she had learned that life, even after great loss, could still hold joy. Taking Daniel's hand, she whispered, "It's a new dawn." And as the sun rose higher in the sky, Pamela stepped forward, toward a future she was finally ready to embrace. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, drop a comment, share with friends and family, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another African folktale story.